And here we are with the last book in the Tome of Fire series, Nocturne. Alright, now I realized in my first two reviews on book number 1 and number 2 in this trilogy, I left out a lot, and I was trying to avoid spoilers. But in order for me to give a proper representation of this book, it's going to be very difficult for me to avoid any spoilers. So you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And I'm going to use a slightly different method in this review. First, I'm going to start off with a lot of the characters that I haven't mentioned that kind of have an importance, kind of don't. Well, you'll find out because I'm going to go through a lot. Oh, I love coffee. First on the list is Bakken. He's Dacre's best friend. He was the heavy weapons specialist in the squad. When Dacre left, he became sergeant. He was part of the squad that was captured by the Dark Eldar in the second book. Escaped just fine, sort of. And eventually becomes the captain of the recruits. Overall, a very likable character, doesn't really do much to push the major plot along, but you're going to like reading about him. Next, Egon. He's the toady I was talking about in the first book. He manipulated Sugan, kind of got a hard on about watching Sugan torture himself. He was a murderer and betrayed the company in order to advance Sugan. Felt betrayed when Sugan became Fire Drake. Got very angsty, joined Chaos, and eventually becomes a demon. Next, Fugus. He was a chapter apothecary. After kind of being manipulated by Egon, he left the chapter and joined the Brenner Walk, which is kind of like what happens in that Judge Dredd movie when the judges kind of walk throughout the desert and eventually die. He's supposed dead, but you never see the body, so you know he's going to be alive, because that's what goes on in movies and comics, and, well, you've seen it a million times. He's gone for a long chunk of the story, eventually comes back. He returns with knowledge that he found in an ancient crypt or temple or buried ship or something he found in the desert, never really explained, and kind of explained what needs to be done with the almighty MacGuffin that they end up finding in the end of the first book. I forgot to tell you about that. Alright, there was this ancient space marine, part of a company from the chapter of Salamanders from like centuries and centuries and centuries ago. That's what you call him, ancient. He holds some secrets that's supposed to be part of this prophecy that's going on right now, but he can't remember because he's got something wrong with his brain. So they kill him, took his gene seed, not sure what to do with it, until Fergus shows up. Or Fugus, whatever. Next, Emek. He was a positive kind of soldier in the first book. Became the new apothecary when Fergus left. Got injured in the Fire Drake's audio drama. Now he's walking around with a limp, kind of angsty. Does practically nothing to push the plot along. He's just kind of there. Not a bad character, but ultimately useless. Now there's Praetor, the guy that leads Fire Drakes. His main purpose in the story is to be awesome, win battles, and that's pretty much it. Now going back to the Forge Father. He's always talking about the prophecies, trying to figure out what's going on with Dacre. Most of the time he's chilling out of Praetor, fighting all those awesome battles that Praetor's fighting, but he's pretty much winning all the battles for everybody. And then at the end of the book, he leaves. Now, what's going on with Dacre? If you ever figured it out, he's become a librarian. Has massive psychic power. He was puking out fire and lava. You've seen that on the title card in the last review. There's a prophecy revolving around him on whether he's going to destroy the planet or save the planet. Nobody's sure, so they're being really careful about him and lock him in a cage. He becomes free, sees Fergus, finds out what to do with the MacGuffin, becomes the Human Torch, saves everybody. Then he blows up. Now going back to Sugan. He was a jerk to Dacre, joined the Fire Drakes, being captured by the Dragon Warriors. He was tortured and was being pushed to become a Chaos Space Marine. Escaped for a little while and went on a rampage! Rampage! Got captured again, got something put in his head to control his mind. He was used to fight against his own chapter, the Salamanders. Eventually broke free, made Dacre blow up. Now going back to the Marines Malevolent. They get off on a really bad foot with the Salamanders. They stole equipment from the Imperium to restock their own stores. Got into a big beef with the Salamanders. They were jerks. They sent a squad in secret, the same squad they first met on that one ship, to join the battle against the Salamanders, pretending to be corrupt. But of course, in the process of fighting, they ended up becoming corrupt. So they weren't pretending anymore. And now the big baddie in the Hell End. He's trying to steal the Tome of Fire. That's a book of prophecies the Salamanders have, and it's like their holy grail or Bible, whatever. He forged an army that comprised of the Dragon Warriors, some other Chaos Space Marines, those Marines from the Malevolent Squad I told you about, the Dark Eldar, and some brainwashed Iron Warriors. And whatever other aliens he could get in there. Got this huge cannon that's supposed to be like a planet cracker. Begins this huge, like, planetary battle against the Salamanders. But of course, they get stopped by the Human Torch. You know what, in the Healing, he's doing this because he wants to resurrect Oshirak. He was pretty much the leader in the Healing, and the rest of the Dragon Warriors followed. But the Salamanders killed him, and he's trying to figure out a way to bring him back. Not sure how, but I'm pretty sure the powers of chaos and that book he's trying to steal are involved. And, Whew. Didn't realize those words were so volatile. Okay, and I know there's more characters I haven't mentioned, but you saw what I just went through. There's just way too much going on and too many characters to follow. And I don't really necessarily mean that in a bad way as far as the reader goes, but as a reviewer, man, trying to cover all of that is just too much for me. And yes, I realize there were a few spoilers in that, but really when you read the book, it's all about the journey. Man, I hope they buy that. And if you've gone through the first two books, you owe it to yourself to finish this one. It almost finishes up the trilogy. Now, what I mean by almost is there's a lot of plots going on, and there's a lot of questions they open up, but they don't really answer all of them. They answer a few, but they end up opening more questions. Like how Dagger is supposedly the Unbound Flame, which I forgot to mention. The Unbound Flame is supposed to be one of Vulcan's pieces of junk he left around, but it could be in any form, so they think it's Dagger. But they never really explain what's really going on. They never explain what it was that Fugus found in the desert. I mean, seriously, what was that room? I don't know. And it's just a lot of little things like that. But seeing as how this audio drama is coming out, and the series started off as if it was already in the middle of a story, I wouldn't be surprised if the story continues on in another Salamander series. I should have probably researched that before I did this review. But if you're a Salamanders fan, I would really recommend getting this series. While the series as a whole was a little difficult to read and there's a lot going on, this series is really for Salamanders fans. If you're not a Salamanders fan, if you're new to Warhammer, or even if you're not new to Warhammer, but you're not quite a Salamanders fan, it will be difficult for me to recommend the series as a whole. There were a lot of fun parts in it that I enjoyed. It did introduce me to a lot of elements in 40k universe, like the Black Dragons chapter and how they might be a successor chapter to the Salamanders. And then when I was looking it up, I found out a lot of information on the Black Dragons and all their fluff behind that and their founding. But then again, I'm the kind of guy that really loves fluff. And I actually like looking up all this information. If you're not that kind of person, then it'll be really tough for you to get into this series. And there was my very iffy recommendation. But for now, that's enough about the Salamanders. Next review, we're going back to Gave Trope. And I'm going to be introducing you to the Dark Angels. Now, that's my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.